We'll do a review in Chelek, Likutei Sichos and Chelek Chof Aleph, in volume 21, and we'll do now the second Sicha from the Parshas Beshalach. And the discussion is from this pasuk in this week's Parsha. We learn out about the 3 meals that one has to eat on Shabbos, and we know that in Suda Shlishis, we are yoitze with just having some fruit, even as the Rebbe will go through inside the various customs. And but in Halacha in Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe says 3 meals. How come? And the Rebbe explains, according to Kabbalah, that's main the La'asi, the Raivin. It's a time when there is no eating or drinking. But how does that fit together with halacha? The Rebbe explains that because according to the Kabbalah, it's not a time of eating, the person is not enjoying the food. And the whole meals have to be eaten for enjoyment. And the Rebbe goes on to also explain, but still, if there's no eating, so why do we eat something? And the Rebbe says, because it's actually connected with the guf, not to totally put the body away, as the Rebbe will explain, but we'll go now step by step. Beshalach base. So first, the Rebbe brings the source from our pasuk that it says 3 times hayoim. So we learn from this that the month is supposed to be hayoim once, twice, and the 3rd time. So from that we learn the 3 sudas. Aleph. From the pasuk in the verse, Vayomer Moshe yichlu hayoim. Moshe says about the month, eat it today. And then it says, Ki Shabbos hayoim la Hashem. Today is a day of rest for Hashem. And then it says, hayoim lo simtzou basodeh, that today you will not find it in the field because you're not supposed to collect it on Shabbos. And since it says it 3 times in the pasuk hayoim, wo steht drei Mal der Wort hayoim, it says 3 times the word hayoim. B'negei achilas hamon b'Shabbos, as it's associated, connected to eating the mon on Shabbos. Lernen of Chazal, our sages of blessed memory, learn from this the mchiyuv von achilas sholish seudas b'Shabbos, the obligation that on Shabbos we have to eat 3 meals. Unchoch asuda is ikra achilas pas. Notwithstanding the fact that when you talk about a meal, mainly a meal means bread. Gefindt man aber, so we find, however, as benegeya der Suda Shlishis wird gebracht in Shulchan Aruch a machlokes haposkim. As it relates to the 3rd meal, 1st and 2nd, we know there is pas, eat bread. But as far as the 3rd meal, in the Shulchan Aruch, it brings down a disagreement of the poskim, of the codifiers. As einen dort deyes, there are opinions as oich besuda shlishis darf zayin achilas pas, that also during the 3rd meal needs to be the eating of bread. And then quoting from the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, brings down yesh makilin. There are those that are lenient, sheyochel lekayim sudas gimel, that you can fulfill the 3rd meal, b'chol machol ha'osui mechameshes haminim, any food made out of the 5 types of grain, shemavarchim olav beidem minim mezonos, that on which you would make a beidem minim mezonos, shunikra mozain, that's also called mozain. That's also a nurturing, a nourishment. It's a food. So the second opinion says you don't need bread, but you can use a mazonos, which is made out of the 5 different types of grain. And the Alter Rebbe continues, V'yesh makilinoid, there are those who are even more lenient. Sheyochol lekaimo gamkein, that you can also fulfill the obligation of the 3rd meal B'dvorim shederech lelafish behemes hapas, with items that are normally used to go with the bread. Kigoin, as for example, basar v'dogim. Not even a mezoinus. This is a shahakal. Meat and fish, which go together with the bread, you can be yotze also. That's a lenient opinion. And then even further, yesh makilin oid. There are those that are even more lenient. That even with fruit you can fulfill the Suda Shlishis. What does the Alter Rebbe conclude? The Halacha. And the Alter Rebbe b'Shulchan is Messiah. So the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch, he concludes, Ve'ein lismech klal al kol zeh. You cannot rely at all on all these. Unless it is impossible. Otherwise, you can't eat any more bread. As for example, that he is so satisfied that he cannot eat bread without causing himself pain. Otherwise, he should eat hamotzi. Otherwise, he should eat bread. But if he's impossible to eat any more bread without causing himself pain, then he can fulfill with one of the above opinions. Seems clear from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch that one should eat bread Suda Shlishis, but yet the minhag is that the Rebbes did not wash and eat bread for Suda Shlishis. Afal Pikein, and still, is Yodua the minhag from Rabbi Seinu Nisienu. It is known, the custom of our teachers, our leaders, as a flegen beruba deruba beyeser. In the majority of the majority, the great majority, the Ruba Yeser, nit essen pas besuda shlishi. They would not eat bread during the Suda Shlishis for the third meal. They flegen yotze zayin di seuda. They would fulfill the meal mit atima kolshu with a just anything, just a small taste. That's how they would fulfill the Suda Shlishi. Why is the Suda Shlishis different than the first two Sudas? What's the reason for that? What's the source for that? Because in the Pasuk, the third time it says, Hayom loy timtzu basoda. So there is sort of, today you will not find it. So instead of talking about eating today is Shabbos, it says Hayom loy. So that is an indication that Suda Shlishis is different. The Tam Hadover is, the reason for this is, Hayois die dritte Suda werd abgelernt von dem dritten Mal Hayoim, since the third meal is derived, we learn it from the third time that it says Hayoim, was steht in Pasuk, which is written in the verse, wo Teure sagt, the Teure says Loi, Hayoim Loi Timtzu. The today not, which is the Shalila, von Gefin and the Mon, that is the negation of finding the Mon, is the Liber Masim. So that's why it fits as in their Suda Shlishis, that in this third meal, Zol Dozain Niker, you should be able to tell this Ayom Loi, durch nit essen kein Pas, that not eating bread. Bedugma, that would be similar to loy simtzu fun mon lechem. You're not going to find mon. You're not going to find bread. That was the mon. The mon was the lechem in Hashamayim. And today, loy, you don't have the mon. That is the Suda Shlishis. That's the source from the pasuk that there may be that there's a difference. The hasbara hapnimis derfun. In Chassidus, the inner explanation of this, as explained in Chassidus. The Dritta Suda from Shabbos, the third meal of Shabbos, is connected them Shabbos the lost love that corresponds to the Shabbos that is in the future to come. Shabbos of the future to come is going to be a big Shabbos. The whole Osid Lava is called Shabbos. Wie steht euch in Bach, also brought down in the Bach on the tour in Halacha, by welchen es steht, the Shabbos of the future says, Olam habo, the world to come, ein boy loy achila, veloy shetiya, no eating and no drinking. The third meal corresponds on Shabbos to the time of Olam habo, when there is no eating and no drinking. Und die Hamshoche is demult from Bechinas ein, or ayin. Then it comes from ein boy, comes from the level of ayin, as stated in the Bechayim. The riber is oich the seuda nit kein regular. That's why the meal is also not a regular meal. And it is mudgesh, and this meal it's emphasized there. They're not finding it. The ayin es nit kein pas. We don't eat bread. We fulfill with just a small taste. To correspond to the idea of Shabbos the Losid, which we don't be no eating and no drinking. So this Suda is also a Suda of not eating or drinking. We don't eat pas, and we fulfill the obligation of 3 meals just by tasting something. Comes out that according to the Kabbalah, it's not a time for eating, it's time to loss. But how do we fit that in with what the Alter Rebbe ruled in the Shulchan Aruch and what we read and the Minhag? What the Alter Rebbe said in the Shulchan Aruch, that you should have bread on Suda Shlishis. The Torah is one Torah, the Pnimius Torah, and the Nigla the Torah is one Torah. These are not 2 separate Torahs. So the halachas needs to be the same. So how come in Nigla the Torah we said that you need pas? Alter Rebbe paskas l'chatchila. And in the Pnimis HaTorah we say you don't need pas because it's main the losin. Base. Toreseinu HaKadoisha is HaTorah Achas. Our holy Torah is one Torah. Upnimius HaTorah min Hagel. And the inner part of Torah and its traditions, Unchelik Halacha Shabbat, and the section of Halacha and Torah is Zainu they really want. Thus haste, that means, as alle Chelkei HaTorah seinen Masim einer mit the andere, that all portions of Torah fit one with the other. Und sie seinen Eule bekona echo, they go up in one pipe. They both unite, come together. Is verstandig, so it's understood as Minna Gedele Yisrael, that the custom of the great people of Israel, the Rebbes, and those that go in their pathways, and they go to begin with, they follow the way it's in the inner part of Torah. Is nit akulon the eved al pi halacha mitzidum chas v'shalom. This is not a leniency or an after the fact situation according to halacha, that after the fact you can be yoitze with a te'ima culture. No, we can't say that. We have to say that there is actually a source of lechatchila, and that this is okay to be done. And Rebbe will explain that. So Dafman Farstein, so we need to understand. Hein emes, let it be true. As Leuten has that according to the explanation in the inner matter of things is Uda Shlishis, Hecher von Achille, it's higher than eating. Und das ist eine Sinastam. And that is a reasoning of need to essen pas, not to eat bread. Aber al pi halacha is das fort akula. But it seems like according to halacha, that's a leniency. Is with Alter Rebbe sagt, to the extent Alter Rebbe sagt, vein lismech klal al kolza. You cannot rely at all on all this. Seiden fall from the evidence, only if it's after the fact. Then that he's zat from free, that he's so satisfied from before he can't eat. Is vi is dos masim. So how can you fit this medembos al Chassidus, that according with the fact that according to Chassidus is a hidden nitzah as past, it's a perfection in the performance of mitzvahs not to eat bread because it's main de losin, and al pinigla it's a kula, which the Alter Rebbe says you can't rely on unless you are satisfied, then you can't eat at all. And the Rebbe will explain now that we find that the eating on Shabbos, the meals on Shabbos, have to be pleasurable. And that's what we also find, like, so for example, if a person is fasting for a bad dream because he feels terrible if he eats, and that's going to cause him pain. So it's not a mitzvah to eat. For him, it's a mitzvah not to eat because eating is painful for him. And the Rebbe is going to bring out, according to the Kabbalah, that they're not supposed to eat for a person that senses that it's painful to eat them. Let's look inside Gimel. So we can say the explanation of this. The mitzvah achilas sholish b'Shabbos with regards to the mitzvah of eating 3 meals on Shabbos. Zog der Alter Rebbe says, that the mitzvah to the Shabbos is just for pleasure, for delight, is haste. As by alle drei Sudas Shabbos, that by all of the 3 meals of Shabbos, is der chiyuv nit etzem ha'achila from paschal atzma. The obligation is not eating of itself of bread independently. Say you have to eat bread on Shabbos. No. You have to enjoy. You eat the bread to enjoy. No. That inyan ha'oinig was in them. It's the pleasure that you get when you eat the meal. If he's according to this, as by alle Sudas Shabbos, is tzivui verbunden mit oinig, that by all meals of Shabbos, the command for eating is connected with pleasure, or nit mit der achilek shel atzma, and not with eating by itself. So what happened is in afal wo a mensch hot tzar from der achila. So if it's a case where the person has pain from eating, is nit nor as if in lik nit kechiv achila. It's not only that there is no obligation lying upon the person to eat. If he doesn't feel, if he has pain from eating, not only is he not obligated to eat, no, more than that, he's actually obligated not to eat. There is a part of a obligation nit to as not to eat. Under Loshe von Alten Rebbe, the Alten Rebbe's language you have there is ein tzorich letzayres atzmei lechel. When he says he doesn't have to pay his lechel, the Rebbe wants to say that it also includes the meaning meint efshe possibly as darf nit unkemat tornit. Ein tzorich means he doesn't have to, but even though it doesn't say he's not allowed to, but it means almost because he doesn't have to, he's not allowed to. And why? Balazachila is der Hepech in Yonim Fusudas Shabbos Hepech, because that kind of eating is contrary to the idea of the meals of Shabbos. The meals of Shabbos is to enjoy, and if he is painting himself as Hepech, this is opposite of delight to eat when you can't eat, overstuffing yourself is painful for him. So he's even not allowed to. He doesn't have to, and he's even not allowed to. Aderech with the Alter Rebbe schreibt b'shayich b'ferish. Similar to what the Alter Rebbe very clearly writes, b'shayich is with the minyan von tainis und heder achille b'Shabbos, in connection with the idea of fasting and the lack of eating on Shabbos, as Odom sha'achila mazekes loy, but a person who eating hurts him. Person not allowed to fast on Shabbos. But what happens if food is actually hurting you? Then the pleasure is not to eat. And tzorich lechel klal, he doesn't have to eat at all. Ukimat, and it's almost osur loy lechel, and it's almost prohibited for him to eat. Shloit started with Shabbos, that he shouldn't be pained on Shabbos. So you see clearly, the Alter Rebbe brings down that the whole idea of eating is to enjoy. But if you're not enjoying, if you're having pain, you shouldn't eat, and you're almost not allowed to eat because you shouldn't cause yourself pain on Shabbos. So that's talking about generally eating food, if it causes you pain or not. But talking specifically, if eating bread is going to cause you pain, same thing is true for that. You shouldn't eat that. Just as we're talking over here to not to eat at all, that sometimes that is the pleasure and you don't have to eat. There's also the details. There's sometimes a food that we say you don't have to eat. If he has pain from eating bread on the meal of Shabbos, so by this person, the obligation to begin with, the obligation is nit zu essen kein pas. It's not to eat bread. The contrary, yes and pas. If he will eat bread, but the tonazach was his the Shabbos. He will be doing a matter which is contrary to the intent of the meal of Shabbos. If he's going to eat pas when he has pain from eating pas, then he would be actually doing against the meals of Shabbos because he's eating something that causes him pain. So now the Rebbe says the same thing is when we come to the Suda Shlishis, and he knows that it's a time that you're not supposed to, it's Mein de Los Dalet. According to this, we can say, Dos vosi is lechatchila. Paran achi funachilas pas bisudas shlishis. The fact that to begin with, there is an obligation of eating bread during the third meal is as dafke when beim odom is as an inyan v'noinig. It is only, to begin with, you only need to eat bread at the Suda Shlishis if, to begin with, this is something, it's a matter for oinig, it's an inyan for oinig. It's a matter that causes you pleasure. Mashein came when that hot came for nachilas pas, as opposed to when he doesn't have any pleasure. He doesn't gain delight from eating bread. Because he knows, he believes with complete faith, as in the Zeit von Suda Shlishi Raiva the Raivin, that in the time of the third meal, which is Raiva the Raivin, it's the Rotzen of all the Ritzonis on a very high spiritual level, is Meir, shines the Bechina, and then we have the level from Hayom Loi. Today, no, the level of Bechinas Ayin, level of Ayin. Unas dos is azman me'en Yom Kippurim. This is a time which is similar, a little bit of Yom Kippur. Was ruft sich Shabbos Shabbosi, the Shabbos of the Shabbos. Un me'ein olam habo, and this is similar to a little bit of olam habo, but ein bo le'achila v'lo shtia, that there is no eating and drinking them. So he knows he's now at the Raivim, he's the Rotzin of Old Tzornus, and he is associated with level of Loi, and it's like Yom Kippur, it's Mein Elam Habo. There's no eating, drinking that. Und der Fad is for him at Tzar Pass, so he has from that, he's in pain, he doesn't want to eat bread now. Demul is Melachatchila Nitchal der Chiv Tzar Pass B'Sud Shlishi. In that instance, that case, to begin with, there is no obligation to eat bread and sunnah. On the contrary, ba'em is a hidur api halacha. By that person, it's the perfection. According to halacha, soll sich nicht mit Zeir sein, mit achilas pas. He should not pain himself to eat bread, nor yoytze sein, this uda mitoim sein kolshu, but rather to fulfill the third meal by tasting something but not eating bread, because the bread will be causing him pain because at that time of Ravid the Raivim, and therefore he's better off not eating the bread so he doesn't cause himself damage. Yesh loymar, as the Faris given minag Rabbeinu Nisienu. That is why there was the tradition for our Rebbes, our leaders. They had the tradition to fulfill the meal just by tasting something. They felt that light which shines during the third meal. So to them it was painful to eat them. What about the Hasidim that don't feel? The Hasidim seien doch mekusher zu sehen. They are tied to them. Lernen Torah sumamnas lasis. They studied the Torah of the Rebbes in order to do ungeim b'dracheim, and they go on their ways. So therefore, the Hasidim also don't eat the bread in the time of Ravid the Raivim when it is a painful time for those who appreciate that time, that there should be a time of not eating the bread. I say, but the question now is on the other side. Why then do we make sure to taste something? Shouldn't we just skip it because he's mitzvah and it's me'ein olam habo? It's like Yom Kippur. Why are we mahader and looking to be toyim something? Hey, we still need to, however, understand about as in the Zman for Minchas Shabbos, since during the time of Minchas Shabbos. Is made the beginners von Hayom Loi is shines the level of Hayom Loi, the level of no, the level of Ayin, hot legamri nit gedacht sein. Came Sudan, there should be no meal at this time at all, just like the Yom Kippurim, because it's Asur B'Achila, which is prohibited B'Achila. And we find Al Derech V'Megefint, as Rashbi had forbidden the Suda Shlishis from Erev Pesach Shechaliyas B'Shabbos. Erev Pesach that comes out on Shabbos, you can't have to eat before nighttime, before the Seder. So the Rashbi, he exchanged it with Divrei Torah of Ma'aseh Merkava. He spoke Divrei Torah, Ma'aseh Merkava. So there was no eating at all. Farvos, Farbitman dos Midran Hoge. Why do we tie this to the conduct as a smooth Zainat Ima, a component from Peter that at least you must taste, at least let it be fruit. So the Rebbe said this, while in some places in Hasidus, it seems like the reason we do taste is because it's still not as high as a level as Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is no eating. Here there is not as high. There is there's still payers. But the Rebbe says in other places it's mashma that the te'ima is not just because it's not on such a high madrege, but it's bekavona that there should be a te'ima. Bekama mekoymes in Chassidus in several places in Chassidus is mashma, it appears as those was by Suda Shlishis dar zayin te'ima kosher. This that on the third meal there needs to be somewhat of a taste. Nit v'yem kippurim, but it's also unlike Yom Kippur, which is prohibited to be eaten. Is das nit mitzad meilas Suda Shlishis? It's not because of the advantage, the greatness of Suda Shlishis, nor verkehrt. But on the other hand, it's not as great. Vados is nit mer b'me'ein olam haba v'yem kippurim. It's only similar of olam haba Yom Kippur, and therefore we should eat. It doesn't get that level of sanctity. Aber in a Rishima from Kuveit Kedushas Merichom Admur, in a write-up of my father-in-law, the Rebbe, B'Shem Aviv Chak Admur Rashab Nishmos Eiden, the name of his father, the Rebbe Rashab Nishmos Eiden, is geschrieben, is read like this: Hod de Suda Shlishis Hayoim Loi, Hainu Shein Tzorich Pas, Avot Tzorich Litoim Eize Dover. So he says that you still need to taste, even though Suda Shlishi Loi, but you still need to taste something. And brings down from Rabbi Yossi, Yei Chelki Me Oichlei Gimel Sudas. Let there be my part, my portion from those that eat 3 meals. So he brings down this lotion. The Rebbe says the Hemshech HaLoshon seems that this is a positive, not only because it doesn't reach the level of Elam Haba and Yom Kippur. But in the Loshon, the Hemshech HaRa'inyan, Tzorich Litem Eizedover, that you do need to taste something. He brings the saying of Rabbi Yossi, Yehei Chelki, let it be my portion, is mashma. It appears, it's understood as the tzorich litiv chulu is a maile v'ilu v'suda shlishis. Need to taste is talking about an advantage, a greatness of the third meal that you do need to taste something. The other hand, the Rebbe says, why is he bringing the statement of Rabbi Yossi over here versus the main source for eating the 3 meals? Also, it's not so smooth. Was the Rebbe Nishmos Eiden bring the Maimer for Rabbi Yossi also? He brings the statement, the saying of Rabbi Yossi as a proof to his words. If he is talking about the obligation of eating of the third meal according to halacha, darf gebracht werden l'chole reish. So first and foremost, we should bring down the metzam chiyuv, the obligation itself. But if we're talking about the inner reason for tzorich litem chulu, that you still gotta taste it, so how is that proven from Rabbi Yossi? Who is in them the chochem of Rabbi Yossi? How does Rabbi Yossi saying that I wish I would be of those who eat the 3 meals prove the inner reasoning for eating the third meal? And the Rebbe explains in Ois Vov by first explaining what the Rabbi Yossi is really saying. Let there be my portion. What kind of a bracha is this? It's a fair shedin to eat the 3 meals. What does he mean, halavai? So you can say, what is the explanation of this? By first into explaining the saying of Rabbi Yosef itself, what is the meaning of Rabbi Yosef? So Chayr is not understood. Der Chiyuv zu essen sholish sudas b'Shabbos is doch adin mefurish b'Sugya Shom. The obligation to eat 3 meals in Shabbos is a very clear law in the Gemara over there, in the discussion there. It was meant to do. What does Rabbi Yossi mean here? To wish for himself, Yehei chelki chulu, let there be my portion. The Marsho is mefarish. The Marsho explains, as the Tam was Rabbi Yossi, had gesagt, Yehei chelki meichle sholish sudas chulu. Why did he say that? Yehei chelki. Und soll euch sein sagen, Yehei chelki bei kama anderen yonim. Also, by many other things, Rabbi Yossi says, let my portion be, was werden dort gebracht in Gemara, which I brought in the Gemara, is Gedei Lezaris as Abriyas, that is in order to encourage the people to do it. He says, Yechelki, let it be my portion. But the Rebbe says, with regards to the Suda Shlishi, it's not so understood. The Chedis is a Sobernit Galati. This doesn't seem to be smooth. We can understand by matters which are just a person doing them as a perfection, doing more. Midas Chasidus, it's a measure of Chasidus. But you want to encourage somebody to say, do this. Is Masim, then it's fitting to Zog the Loshi El Chelki, let there be my portion, Kidei Lazaris as Abrias, in order to encourage the bees. Aber wie is Masim Zogen Adam Loshim and Egeya zu Sholish Suudis, was is Achiv Gomer, but how is it fit to say this language, Yechelki, let in my portion, with regards to the 3 meals, which is a complete obligation? Well, why is he saying Yechelki? Well, maybe the Rebbe says, maybe he's saying, make sure not to eat too much, so that you should be able to eat the Suda Shlishi. You're not going to be stuffed, and therefore you'll be able to eat the Suda Shlishi. You can't answer. Can't answer. What he meant here was the caution that the wise person has his eyes in his head, sees what's going to be resolved. Don't fill your stomach in the morning meal, so that you should be able to eat the 3rd meal. So that's what he means by saying Yechelki. Because it's difficult to say something so obvious that don't eat too much so you can eat later on. So should wish Yechelki. Must mean something different. And the Rebbe says that really we're trying to say that there has to be, the body needs to be also in eating the 3 meals, as the Rebbe will say in the end, because to be able to bring down the highest of levels, that also the body should enjoy it. That's Yechelki, that should be my portion, to be able to share it and to come down into the body. Let's look inside. So we can say the explanation in this. Das was Eilam Haba is ein boy loy achila v'loy shtia. In the world to come, we say there's no eating and no drinking. Meint nitzu zogen does not mean to say as demult wird sich verlieren the Meile von dem idischen Guf, that then the advantage of the Jewish body will be lost. So there's nothing to eat or drink about. There's no body over there. It's not important. Weil es wird bottle sein Metzias, because the existence of the body is negated, or the Akopon Chashivas, it no longer exists, or even if it is, but it's not important anymore. That's not what it means. As meint nor, as be'olam haba, that in the world to come, but der chibur from guf mit neshama, how will the guf stay connected with the soul? Nit zayin durch achilu u'shtiya gashmis. It won't be through eating and physical drinking. Okay, Yidua, as it's known, as Chassidus Paskund, Kedas Ramban. Chassidus rules as the view of the Ramban. as the shleimus von Olam Haba, what is the wholesomeness of the world to come, is the Zman von La'achat Chiyas HaMesim. That's the time following resurrection of the dead. When as well Zayin, the Neshamas begufim, the souls will be together with the body. While in the idischen Guf mitzad atzma is do amayla miyuchedet, because in the Jewish body, in of its own, not only because it's connected to the soul, but in itself is a special advantage. So according to this, we can say, as the riber is farana maili in them, therefore there is an advantage in the fact was is do achila kolshu bisuda shlishi, that there is some eating in the third meal. Hayois, as this uda is me'ain from the osud, since this uda is similar to the future to come. Was euch demult wird sein aguf, was wird mekabel sein schar, then too there will be a body which will receive reward. High timer darf der guf filun euch besuda zu anoinig. And that's why we need the body should also feel at this meal that it's a pleasure, a joy, during the ti'ima kolshu, through this somewhat of a taste. Zusammen mit dem Inyan von Ayin and von Loi, together with the idea of Ayin and Loi. Durch der Ti'ima kolshu, zusammen mit dem Inyan von Ayin, von Loisim zu, both together, and the river estimate can pass. So he's not eating bread because this is a level of ayin, but you want the body to also benefit because the body is going to receive its independence. We say to Mizun, it's even more than this. As is mefurish become a mekoimus, as the sudas liviyosum b'shoy rabor the loss in lovi, that the meals of the liviyosum and the shoy rabor that's going to be in the future, that zayin suda gashmi will be a physical suda. V'yesh loymar as l'ramis al zeh is the ti'ima kolshu. To a hint for that is this somewhat of a taste, because there is going to be some physical meal, the livyosin and the shoy rabor. As is over achidush godel, to say that the reason we're tasting is for hinting the livyosin rabor. We need to look and search for a basis for this idea. And that's why we taste something to be meramis for the sudas levios and the sherabot. Ches. You say this deeper. Das was der shleimus haschar leosid is davke by neshamas begufim. The reason why the ultimate reward in the future to come is specifically souls in a body is weil demult vet nisgale werden the meiles hagufa neshama. Then will be revealed the advantage of the body over the soul. Biz as a neshama tehein nizonis min aguf, that the neshama will be nurtured from the body. The neshama darf onkommen zum guf. The soul needs to come onto the body. Kedeis soll sich in ihre herren the darge from Hussein Batsmusi is better, so that the soul should be able to sense that level, that step, that Atzmusi is better, the essence, the Muhusa blessed of Hashem, was mitzvah mitzvah, which is mitzvah, his existence is from himself, which is comes from the body. So according to this, we can say, as it relates to the third meal, in Dembos says Muzain Akolponim the team of culture. The fact that you need at least somewhat of a taste, an ilui, it expresses an advantage. When is madgish milas haguf, you emphasize the advantage of the body. And therefore, it expresses even more the Shabbos of the world to come, which the body will nurture the soul. So we're giving the credence, we're giving importance. We're saying there should be a benefit and an enjoyment for the body. Tess, und das ist the Kavone Penimis in Divrei Rabbi Yossi. And this is the inner meaning, intent of the words of Rabbi Yossi. Yehei chelki me'oichlei gimel sudas b'Shabbos. I should be eating those who eat 3 meals on Shabbos. Soll können essen an Achilles kol shehi b'suda shlishis. You should be able to eat, to have a benefit. Das soll bei ihm sein an einig. He wanted this to be my pleasure. In them wird sich der Herrn. So he should be able to eat, which means he will be able to sense the Mailavos vet this Galaver and Eshla Osilove, that advantage that will really first be sensed, revealed in the future to come. Mailas Aguf, he should have the advantage of the body. He should have it now. Let me able to eat, not sense the not eating, but the able of the benefit that there is an advantage to the Guf. Und das ist der Reihe, was der Rebbe Nishmasim bringt von meinem Rabbi Yossi. That's the proof that the Rebbe Nishmasim brings from Rabbi Yossi. Bald as Rabbi Yossi hat gesagt, Yechelki Chulu, since he said Yechelki, should be my part. All people should state that they know what the mitgegeben sinas koyach. So that's the way he gave the strength to essen and achila kol shiba suda shlishis, to eat something, somewhat by the third meal. But oifun adosi is amaila, in a way that this becomes a greatness. Yehem evinchich. This is something we wish ourselves. Yechalki. Need belois is as need agiroin in the mayim loy. Not only does it lack, it's not lacking mayim loy because you're eating something, not adrab. But the as is goydel hamayla from the Shabbos the losim. This is the great advantage of the Shabbos of the future, and the shoman nizunis min aguf, when the soul is nurtured from the body. This is Sichos Shabbos Parshas Bolok Tovshin Tez Zayin and Achrish Pesach Tovshin Lametes.